"Oh, sorry, I left your luxury car with the keys inside. Now it's gone," my sister said, her voice carrying that same infuriating mixture of fake innocence and smug defiance I had known all my life. At first, I thought she was joking, trying to get under my skin the way she always did, but when I saw her expression, calm, detached, even a little amused, I felt my stomach twist. That car wasn't just a car. It was my one splurge, the one thing I had worked double shifts, late nights, and weekends to afford. I had guarded it like a secret, washing it by hand every Sunday, tucking it away like a prized jewel. And she knew that. She knew it was more than metal and leather. It was freedom, pride, and proof that I wasn't the failure my family always whispered about. Hearing her say it was gone felt like she had taken a knife and carved straight into my chest. I remember standing frozen in the doorway, my keys on the hook, the scent of coffee still in the air, while she leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone as if nothing had happened. "You're not mad, are you?" she added with a smirk, in her eyes never leaving the screen. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand how she could be so reckless, but instead, I just stared at her, my thoughts racing back through every single time she had chipped away at my life. Every ruined dress she borrowed, every boyfriend she flirted with, every lie she told that left me cleaning up the mess. But this time was different. This time she had crossed a line so deep it left no room for excuses, no path back. I didn't know it yet, but that moment in my kitchen, the smell of coffee, the soft hum of the fridge, her casual shrug, was the beginning of everything unraveling. And it would end with her realizing that some things, once taken, can never be returned, and some sisters, once betrayed, can never be forgiven. I didn't rush to call the police right away, though my hands itched to. Instead, I sat down across from her, watching how calmly she scrolled through her phone, her nails painted with the polish I had bought last week and hadn't even used yet. "Where exactly did you leave it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my pulse was pounding so hard in my ears that it felt like the room was vibrating. She barely looked up. "Oh, at the plaza, I just ran inside real quick. Thought I'd be 2 minutes, and then I bumped into some friends, and well, I guess it was longer than I thought." My jaw clenched. That plaza wasn't just any plaza. It was known for car thefts, a place I specifically told her never to park my car near, a warning I repeated so many times she used to roll her eyes at me, and now she was looking at me like I was being dramatic. Like this was just another of her silly little mistakes that I would clean up for her. My mind started replaying the years of these moments, the patterns I ignored. When we were kids, she would take my toys and break them. When we were teenagers, she'd borrow my clothes and return them stained or ripped. In college, she maxed out a credit card under my name and let me deal with the collectors. Every single time she said the same words, "Sorry," in that casual, dismissive tone. And every single time, I let her slide, telling myself she was young, she didn't mean it, family comes first. But standing there with the weight of her smirk and the emptiness of that parking lot she had abandoned my car in, I realized she had never once felt sorry. She had always known I would absorb the loss. This time, though, it wasn't just money or clothes. It wasn't something replaceable. This was years of my work, of my independence, my blood and sweat on 4 wheels. She hadn't just lost a car. She had stolen the proof that I was capable of standing on my own and handed it to strangers on a silver platter. My sister thought I would react the same as always, that I would cover the damage, swallow the anger, and let her walk away, untouched. She didn't know yet that something inside me had shifted. This was the moment I finally stopped being her safety net. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number for the police, and for the first time in years, I didn't hesitate. My sister's eyes widened, not because she felt guilty, but because she realized I wasn't going to play her game this time. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, lowering her phone like she couldn't believe I was serious. "I'm reporting a stolen vehicle," I said plainly. She laughed, sharp and bitter, as if the very idea was ridiculous. "You can't do that. It's not like I stole it. I just misplaced it. It's not a big deal. The insurance will cover it." The insurance, my insurance, paid for every month out of my pocket, protected by my spotless record, and here she was, expecting me to drag my good name through mud for her mistake. No, not mistake. Her carelessness. I could see the panic start to flicker in her expression as the operator's voice came on the line, calm and professional, asking me for details. I gave them everything: the exact model, the license plate, the location she had abandoned it at. My sister hovered near me, whispering, "Don't do this, please, don't you dare. Mom and Dad will flip out if they know you're making a scene like this. You're going to ruin everything." But those words didn't have the same grip they once did. For years, I lived under the weight of our parents' constant comparison, how she was the pretty one, the fun one, while I was expected to be the responsible shadow cleaning up her chaos. Every time I tried to defend myself, they'd sigh and say, "She didn't mean it. She's your sister. You should protect her." Protect her. They never once asked her to protect me. And now, as I heard the dispatcher confirm that an officer would be at my home soon, I felt something click inside me. It was as if I had been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. My sister's face hardened. "You're really going to do this to me?" she spat, crossing her arms. "To us." I stared at her, my voice steady when I replied, "No, you did this to yourself." She didn't know it yet, but that phone call was the first domino. It would lead to a chain of consequences she never imagined possible. The knock on the door came faster than I expected, firm and deliberate. 2 officers stood there, notebooks in hand, eyes sharp but professional. My sister immediately tried to take control, stepping forward with her sweetest smile. "Oh, officers, thank you for coming, but it's really just a misunderstanding. My sister's overreacting. The car isn't stolen, I cut her off. She left my vehicle, with the keys inside, in a high theft area. It's gone. That's not a misunderstanding. That's negligence." The officer's pen scratched across the page as I spoke, and I noticed how my sister's charm began to falter. She tried again, her voice high-pitched now. "But it's her car. Why would I ever want it stolen? I didn't mean for this to happen." One of the officers looked at her flatly and asked, "So you admit you left the car unattended, unlocked with the keys inside?" Her silence was louder than any confession. I handed over my documents, insurance, and purchase papers. My sister looked small beside me, suddenly stripped of her excuses. For once, the narrative wasn't in her control. The officers promised to file the report and track the vehicle. As they left, she spun toward me, her mask cracking. "You're insane," she hissed. "You don't understand what you've done. Now everyone will know, the family will know. You're making me look like a criminal." I stared at her, and the strangest calm washed over me. "If the truth makes you look like a criminal, maybe that's what you are." She froze, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to argue but couldn't find words. For years, she thrived on twisting my silence into complicity. But now, with that police report filed, I had broken the cycle. Later that night, I sat on my bed, staring at the empty driveway, and I realized this wasn't just about a car anymore. This was about every manipulation, every dismissal, every time she'd chipped away at me while the family clapped for her charm. And for the first time, I wasn't the one who would be scrambling to fix it. She was. The fallout began the very next morning. My phone buzzed nonstop, first from my parents, then from relatives who barely ever called, all echoing the same accusations. "How could you do this to your sister? Why would you involve the police?" "Don't. You know how bad this makes the family look?" The irony was sharp enough to cut. Not a single one of them asked how I was doing, or how I felt about losing the most expensive thing I had ever owned. It was all about her, as if she were the victim, and I were the aggressor. My mother's voice was the harshest. "Do you know what people will say when they hear you turned on your own blood? Families keep their problems quiet. You've embarrassed us all." I closed my eyes, the familiar weight pressing down again, but this time, I didn't bend. "No, Mom," I said softly but firmly. "She embarrassed herself. I'm just refusing to cover for her anymore." That silence on the line, that pause where I knew she wasn't expecting me to push back, was the smallest but most satisfying victory. Meanwhile, my sister had vanished from the house. Her friends posted pictures on social media, laughing, partying, while I sat at home dealing with insurance calls, bank forms, and detectives asking more questions. And then, A week later, the car turned up, stripped bare in a junkyard miles away, gutted of anything valuable. Seeing it like that felt like looking at a mirror of myself, hollowed out after years of giving everything while someone else took, without hesitation. But the investigators weren't done. They asked me questions that made my skin crawl. Did anyone close to me know my routine? Did anyone know where I usually parked? Did anyone have easy access to the car? Each question pointed, like a compass needle toward one person. My sister hadn't just been careless. She had been deliberate. And suddenly, the truth I had always shoved aside started to take shape in my mind. She hadn't simply lost my car. She had set me up. I remember sitting in that small, sterile office at the insurance company, the adjuster's pen clicking in his hand as he reviewed the report. "It's unusual," he said, glancing at me over his glasses, "that a car like yours would be targeted so quickly in broad daylight. Thieves usually scout, wait, watch for patterns. Almost like someone tipped them off." The words landed heavy. Tip them off. My chest tightened because I already knew who had the motive and the opportunity. My sister had always been reckless, but lately I'd noticed the subtle changes. The designer purse she carried without explanation, the dinners she bragged about but couldn't have possibly afforded. I had brushed it off as her usual manipulation of boyfriends or friends with money. Now, I wasn't so sure. I left the office with a folder of documents pressed to my chest, my mind spinning. At home, I searched her room while she was out. Hidden under her mattress was an envelope stuffed with cash, thick wads of it, far too much for her part-time job. My hands shook as I counted. Almost $7,000. Where could she have gotten it? My phone buzzed then, a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the easy score. Tell your sis we'll take care of her next time too." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just carelessness. She had orchestrated it. She had let people take my car in exchange for money, treating my hard work like her bargaining chip. I sat on her bed, the envelope in my lap, and something inside me hardened into steel. For years, I thought my revenge would be standing up, for myself, refusing to be her crutch. But this was bigger. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had crossed into something criminal, dangerous, irreversible. She thought I would cover for her again. She thought wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope of cash spread. Out in front of me, the text message still glowing on my phone screen. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my car sitting in that junkyard, gutted, useless, a shell of everything I had built. And then I saw her face, carefree, careless, as if nothing mattered because someone else would always pick up the pieces. By morning, I had made a decision. I called the detective assigned to my case and told him everything: the cash, the message, the suspicions I had ignored for too long. His voice was calm, measured, but I caught the edge of interest when I mentioned the money. "Keep it exactly as you found it," he instructed. "Don't confront her yet. We'll take it from here." For once, I wasn't alone in this. Hours later, my sister waltzed into the house, humming, tossing her purse onto the couch like she hadn't destroyed my life. "You look awful," she said lightly, pouring herself coffee. "Still crying about that car? Insurance will pay you back eventually. Relax." I studied her, wondering how she could be so brazen, how she could sip from my mug with money she earned by selling me out. The doorbell rang, sharp and commanding, and her head snapped toward it. 2 plainclothes officers stepped inside, their badges flashing. My sister's smile vanished instantly. "We have some questions," one of them said, his eyes locked on her. She turned to me, betrayal flashing in her eyes, as if I were the traitor for not bearing this too. But I stayed quiet, my hands folded neatly on the table. For the first time, she would have to answer for herself. She sputtered excuses the second they asked where she'd been the day of the theft. "I just left it for a few minutes. I didn't know. Someone else must have." But the officers weren't buying it. They showed her a printout of bank transfers, cash deposits traced to her name. They had moved fast, faster than I expected. My sister's eyes darted between them and me, her voice rising, desperate. "You don't understand. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. They pressured me. I had no choice." One officer leaned in. "So you admit you knew the people who took the car?" That shut her up. Her silence was louder than a confession. My parents rushed over within the hour, storming into my house as if they could undo everything by sheer will. My mother's words were knives. How could you let this happen? Your sister could go to jail. Do you have any idea what that will do to us? Us. Always us. Always the family image, never the damage done to me. I stood in the middle of the living room, my voice steady in a way it had never been before. This isn't about us. This is about her. She made her choices, and I'm done paying for them. My father tried to intervene, his tone softer, pleading. She's your sister. Blood is blood. Don't throw her to the wolves. I looked at him, remembering every bill I paid, every lie I covered, every tear I swallowed while they praised her charm. If she chose the wolves, I said, then she can live with them. The officers escorted her out, her wrists in cuffs, her face twisted in rage and disbelief. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispers rising on the street. My parents stood frozen, their perfect little family image crumbling in real time. And as the door shut, I felt the weight lift, not just of the car, not just of the theft, but of every year I had lived in her shadow. For once, it wasn't my mess. For once, the consequences were hers. The house was eerily quiet after they drove her away, my parents trailing behind in their car like loyal guards escorting a queen who'd finally lost her crown. I sat alone on the couch, staring at the space, where she had stood minutes before, her voice shrill, her excuses tumbling out like broken glass. A strange calm settled over me. It wasn't joy exactly, but something deeper. A release. Like breathing fresh air after years locked in a smoky room. That evening, the phone calls started again. Relatives, neighbors, even so-called family friends who never bothered to check on me before suddenly had endless opinions. You should have kept this private. How could you humiliate your parents like this? She's young. She made a mistake. Don't ruin her future over one bad choice. I listened in silence, then hung up each time without answering, because none of them had seen the truth. The cash hidden under her mattress, the smug smirk when she thought she'd gotten away with it, the utter disregard for everything I had worked for. They didn't see the years of small thefts, lies, betrayals piling up like debris until finally she had tipped the whole structure over. Late at night, my mother sent me a message. Long, rambling, full of guilt and manipulation. We raised you to protect each other. If she goes to prison, it'll be your fault as much as hers. Don't do this to us. I stared at the words until my eyes blurred, then deleted the message. Protecting her had been my prison, and I was done serving her sentence. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just the end of her lies. It was the beginning of my freedom. Days turned into weeks, and the ripple effects kept spreading. My sister was officially charged with conspiracy and aiding in grand theft, and the reality hit harder than even I expected. The girl who once strutted through every family gathering, as if the world bent to her will, now sat in a courtroom, pale and trembling, her lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. My parents sat behind her, their faces drawn and weary, but their glares kept finding me as if I had personally crafted her downfall instead of just refusing to shield her from it. The prosecutor presented evidence piece by piece. The bank, transfers, the messages, even a witness who claimed she had bragged about getting a cut from some easy deal. Every detail stripped away the mask she'd worn her whole life until there was nothing left but the truth. She had sold me out for quick cash. When it was my turn to testify, the room fell silent. I spoke carefully, my voice steady, recounting every step of that day, every moment of her negligence, the envelope of money, the text that shattered any doubt. I didn't embellish, I didn't cry. I just told the truth I had swallowed for years. My sister's eyes burned into me, full of venom, but I didn't look away. For once, I wasn't the weak one. The verdict didn't come that day, but walking out of the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in years. People whispered as I passed, some judging, some pitying, but none of it mattered. I had stopped hiding in her shadow, and that alone was a victory. At home, I walked past the empty spot in the driveway where my car used to sit, and I realized something unexpected. Losing that car had hurt, yes, but in its absence, I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself. The trial stretched on, and with every new hearing, more of my family's dirty laundry was dragged into the open. Old debts, manipulations, and favors my sister had bartered with behind closed doors began to surface. And for once, I wasn't the one stuck patching the leaks. My parents looked smaller each day, their pride and carefully polished image slipping through their fingers like sand, while my sister sat at the defense table, no longer the golden child, but a defendant fighting for freedom she had so carelessly gambled. I kept thinking back to all those years when she laughed at me for being too serious, when she mocked me for working overtime, saving every dollar, protecting what little I had. She called me boring, a doormat, someone who would never live, the way she did. And now here she was, shackled by the very recklessness she once flaunted, while I stood steady, with the truth on my side. The whispers in court were harsh. Neighbors, family acquaintances, people who had always fawned over her were now shaking their heads, muttering about how foolish she had been. For the first time, their pity wasn't directed at her, but at me. At the years I had spent carrying her chaos. My parents tried to corner me outside the courthouse, my mother clutching my wrist with a desperation I had never seen in her eyes. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Don't push this any further. She's your sister. You don't understand what prison will do to her." I pulled my hand away and looked her straight in the eyes. "No, Mom, you don't understand what she's already done to me." The words left her speechless, and for once, I saw the recognition flicker across her face, the realization that I wasn't bending this time, that their perfect cycle of covering, excusing, and enabling was broken. When the prosecution rested its case, the courtroom was heavy with tension. My sister avoided my gaze, her once bright eyes dulled with fear and bitterness. And I realized something profound. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her to admit what she had done or beg for forgiveness. My power wasn't in what she could give me. It was in what I had finally taken back. My freedom, my boundaries, my voice. And whether she walked out of that courtroom with a sentence or with probation, it no longer mattered, because either way, she could never take those from me again. The day of sentencing arrived like the final act of a play I never wanted to star in but could no longer turn away from. The courtroom was hushed, the air so thick it seemed to press against my chest. My sister sat stiffly beside her lawyer, her once carefree confidence replaced with hollow eyes and a clenched jaw. My parents were behind her, hands clasped tightly, as if their grip could hold together the image of the perfect family that had already crumbled. The judge read through the charges with the same steady voice he had used from the beginning, but when he finally pronounced her fate, 18 months, with the possibility of early release depending on conduct, the room seemed to split. My mother gasped. My father muttered something under his breath, and my sister turned toward me with a look I had never seen before. Not defiance, not smugness, not even hatred, just emptiness. She mouthed the words, "You did this," but I didn't flinch, because deep down she knew the truth. I hadn't done this to her. She had done it to herself, one careless choice at a time. Walking out of that courthouse, I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It wasn't fireworks or celebration. It was something quieter, deeper, a kind of peace I had never known. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying her weight on my shoulders. I wasn't silencing myself to protect her, or apologizing for her choices, or twisting myself into knots trying to preserve a family image that had never truly included me. I was free. In the months that followed, I rebuilt piece by piece. The insurance money came through, and though it could never replace the car I had loved, I bought something simpler, practical. A symbol not of status, but of starting fresh. I focused on my work, my friendships, my future. And slowly, I realized that losing that car had given me something priceless, the clarity to see my sister, my parents, and myself for who we really were. She had always believed she could take anything from me without consequence, but this time, she lost everything she thought she controlled, while I walked away with the only thing that mattered, my independence. I don't hate her, not anymore. Hate would mean I still carry her with me. I've let her go. The past, the guilt, the endless cycle of enabling, I've left it all behind. The way she left my car that day, keys inside, wide open for anyone to take. But unlike her, I've learned from the loss. Family, I've discovered, isn't just about blood. It's about respect, trust, and boundaries. And when those are broken, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. So I did. And in that walk, I found myself.